This is A Wilson. Y'all ain't even tell like a tea out ears. If you like my video, please get a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Coming up, I'm going to talk to you days about Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 16, episode 3 and 4. Episode 3 is High Notes and Cheap Shots. It started off with Brit talking to her husband in the kitchen and said she was glad that her family was coming over. And then she gave a little background about her family, saying that her daddy was in the insurance business and he had $1 billion company. But by the time he passed away, he really didn't have enough insurance. So she had to send him, get a GoFundMe to bury him. And she was saying that her, and she was saying that her and her sisters had to talk for a while and stuff. And she was saying she tried to take over the company and she tried to hire her older sister to help her. But she said her older sister said that she was too hard on her, working with her. So she said she had to fire her sister and stuff like that. She said she eventually sold her father's business. And then her sisters showed up. I think she said one of her sisters' name is Tara Tara and Cher, I think. And so she said, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing all right. He said, you haven't been talking to us a while since you got married. She said, well, I've been busy doing everything, stuff like that. He said, how's everything going with you? He said, everything's going all right with me. She said, Brit said, well, me and Mike, we're trying to have a baby and stuff like that. Mike said, well, we ain't gonna talk about that right now. We're gonna talk about that. She said, what are you gonna talk about? He said, we got all these scallops down, got all these scallops down. She said, there's some stuff that I want to talk to you about downstairs, Cheryl. Let's go ahead on and downstairs in the basement talk. So they went downstairs in the basement to talk. And then she said, well, how's everything going with you? She said, like I said, I told you everything's going with me. But she said, you seem like you distanced yourself from the family after you got married. She said, nah, I told y'all that I was getting married, but I still want to have a relationship with y'all. And that's why I want you to come over so we can make up. We can make up. And she said, yeah, we can make up and stuff like that. But I was just letting you know. She said, nah, I didn't do that. And so Mike came downstairs. Y'all all right? Y'all all right? He said, yeah, we got a lot more scallops came of it and stuff like that. Now, I kind of understand where Bruce is coming from. I had a similar situation, in real life. I'm not going on to my personal stuff, but yeah, it's sometimes you do have to not distance yourself, but sometimes you do have to kind of balance it out where you spend time with the blood family and relatives, and then you also spend time with the husband. So that was a cute little scene. This switch to the next scene, and the next scene was Porsha and Kelly having lunch, and then Porsha was saying, "Ooh, give me I think she said some kind of drink, gin and tonic or whatever. I'm not for sure what kind of drink she wanted. So I need a drink because I'm real nervous." And then Kelly walked up and said, "How you doing, Porsha?" And Porsha said, "How you doing, Kelly?" And Porsha said, I was nervous to have this meeting with you, Kelly, because because you came at me kind of hard the last time." I said, "Huh? Kind of hard?" She said, "No. I just asked Shamia, was you was the woman that stole that woman's husband, and she told me, don't be asking her, ask you." And she said, "Oh, my friend Shamia said that. My friend Shamia said that." So Shamia is the one who started this. Shamia is the one who started. I mean, and I was saying, Portia, you just trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. Shamia didn't want to be in the middle. Shamia didn't want to be in the middle of your business. She felt that Kelly should have been talking to you about that, not her. And then so, and then so, Kelly said, well, I was just asking a question just like everybody else. I was asking a question about everybody else. She said, well, you did come in hard. She said, we do have kind of a bipolar relationship. That's what Portia said to Kelly. And Kelly said, well, yeah, kind of. He said, yeah, I was looking at you at what you call, I called you Toto. She said, yeah, and I called you some name too, Portia. I said, you stole it one. And she said, well, okay, so since we're going to get ready to make up and stuff, we okay with each other? And Kelly said, yeah, I'm okay with you, Portia. I have no problem, and Portia, I have no problem with you. And then switch to the next scene, and the next scene was Shamia at a house at a house at the Sterling house, and she was talking about her two sisters. And she was telling her two sisters that all the stuff that she had been going through, with Shea and Shiloh. And she was saying all the medical issues that Shiloh had. And she was saying she felt kind of guilty because because the surrogate was having another baby for her, and the surrogate was also going through cancer and having cancer treatment and stuff. And she was saying her husband Gerald, wants another child, but she don't know if she's gonna have love in her heart for another child. And I was saying, Shamia, you need to kind of put your foot down with Gerald because like you said, you had a lot of difficulty getting pregnant on your own. That's why you had to go through a surrogate, and now he wants you to have another baby, and you already got 2 kids with medical problems and stuff like that. These men need to stop trying to make these women keep on having all these babies, and they know they having difficulties and stuff like that. But she was saying it was one time that she wasn't able to go pick up her little daughter from school. And her older sister did. And she said a little younger sister helped out too. And a little younger sister, your sister had lupus. And she said, I got to crying again. Said, we know, Shamia. And then switch to the next scene. And the next scene was Drew at the studio. And she was going in the studio. She came in and the producers asked her, they said, you ready to lay down? You ready to lay down the vocals? She said, ooh, yeah, but I'm kind of hoarse. I just got through coming out from a movie setting. I was doing a horror movie. I'm doing a lot of screaming. And they said, well, do you think you'll be able to go in the booth? She said, I'm going to try to go in the booth. And then Dennis said, you going to go in the booth? So she went in the booth and laid down, I guess the vocal track, like she said, and they showed the split screen. They showed with Angela, and they showed with Angela and I think it was Angela, Cynthia, and Kenya had came in. They showed and said, "Ooh, you sound good. You sound good." And so Drew saw him and she said, "Oh, let's take a break. Let's take a break." So they went in the lounge area, and Drew told one of the producers, "Would y'all mind giving us some drinks and some water and whatever?" So he said, and one of the producers looked kind of funny. He said, "Oh, okay, I get it." So we got us some water. Said, "Drew, how you doing?" And Drew said, "I'm doing all right. I'm doing all fine." And then Ken said, "Drew, did you ever get a chance to talk to Porsha about your situation? Did you work with Dennis?" She said, "No, not yet." He said, "Why you haven't talked to Porsha not yet?" She said, "No, not yet. I haven't talked to Porsha yet." She said, "But I did call Porsha and text Porsha, see all the texts I got." And then Porsha told me that she was busy, and then she was supposed to call me again. Then she canceled. Then she called me, and then she called me right after Shamia's birthday party and said we can get together and talk. Said, "Oh, that's good. That's good." And then Ken said, "Yeah, because you out here looking like you out here looking like a H." And then Cynthia said like a professional, looking like an H. It's already bad enough when they say you look like a W, but when you look like an H, that's a problem. And then so she was saying, "Well, I didn't see no problem, going with it, because Dennis said that he was gonna tell." And then Kenya said, "Why come Dennis didn't tell?" He said, "I don't know why Dennis didn't tell, because Dennis told me he was gonna tell her." And then Cynthia said, Drew, I'm gonna give you some advice. Kenya back in the day wanted to work with the Leon, but she called me, and I told her it was okay and stuff like that. She said you gotta contact a Porsche, and she said like a person, I wasn't even looking for Porsche, and Porsche called me. And so she was saying, yeah, things hit different with baby's daddies. And I said, huh? Hit different with baby's daddies. I say if they're no longer together and they're just co-parents, she shouldn't be worried about what Dennis doing and stuff like that. And so Dennis said the same thing. He said she had been running all over town with Simon, and then she had to watch her marry 5, 6, 7 men. They don't try to wonder what she wonder, wondering what he doing and stuff like that. And then so it switched to the next scene, and the next scene was Angela going to one of the rental properties that her and Charles Oakley bought, and he said, "You need some help." She said, "You just gonna finally decide to drive up here." She said, "I asked you for some help, and you stood back." He said, well, you guys said, "Yeah, I've been talking all these infected." So he came in the house. She said, see what he said, really bushes and how I've done it really bad. See how you done this stuff? They showed the maintenance man in the background. And next thing you know, she said, "What you doing, Charles?" He said, "I'm checking out everything." She said, "That steak was good." He said, "I see it, dude. I see the water running good and everything." And she said her confession that if she showed Charles that she could fix up those houses and renovate them real good, Charles would be more likely to sign off on her doing real estate and stuff like that. And so and so after that, it switched to the next scene. And let me get some water and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. It switched to the next scene. And the next scene was Portia and her mama going to the spa. And Portia was saying with all the stuff that she going through, she needed to get a break from all the chaos and stuff. And going to the spa is the perfect break. And so her and her mom went to the spa, and her mom was sitting in the chair while she was getting her legs rubbed and everything. And she was saying, "But Portia, I'm so sorry that you went through all this, and had to go through all this." And she said, "Yeah, Mom, I'm sorry I had to go through all this." She said, "I thought Simon was supposed to be there to help me and protect me." And she said, "Yeah, I thought Simon was supposed to protect you too, Portia, was to protect you too." But now he was on the internet. They showed all. He was on the internet, left, right, talking about this and talking about this. So they showed all the blog sites that were talking about Simon and Portia's wedding and stuff like that. And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah, I talked to the new girl Kelly, and new girl Kelly told me that Shamia told her to ask me about the situation with me and Simon and our marriage and stuff." And she said, "Oh, you better watch you uh, 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 you better watch you carry a bone, Portia." And I said, "What, carry a bone?" I said, "All Shamil said was that that Kelly need to ask Portia about her business, not her." And Portia mama said that Portia been California. I said, "You can see what Portia and her mama is already setting up the stage for everybody to try to go against Shamia, like Shamia was the one who started stuff and stuff like that." I can kind of see the writings on the wall from just this little part right here. And then switch to the next scene. And next scene was Drew going to a lawyer. Her lawyer name is Latanya or Tanya. And so it had up there Elite Tanya Services, kind of similar to what Portia did in episode 1. But anyway, she went there and she said, "What's going on?" He said, "Yeah, what's going on with you, Drew?" He said, "I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm just working." She said, "Oh, yeah, you gotta work." And so she went on, she said, "Yeah, what's going on about Kate?" She said, "Well, the only thing holding up your divorce is Ralph. Ralph refused to give his financial information." And she said the financial information that he gave was your information. She said, "But why he don't want to give his information? Why he want to keep the stuff?" She said, "I want to keep the stuff sealed because I know some stuff in there that'll come out that'll hurt Ralph more than it'll hurt me." She said, that's all I can tell you right now, Drew." And Drew said, "Well, if you have any updates, would you let me know?" She said, "Oh, Drew, by the way, you're supposed to be going to court in a couple of weeks." She said, "Huh? What? Court in a couple of weeks?" She said, "Yeah, you got to be there." Drew said, "Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there." And he said, "Well, you have a good day, Drew." And they walked around and switched to the next scene. Next scene showed everybody getting ready for I think it's called the ball meal party. Everybody was getting ready. They showed Kelly getting ready with their kids and everybody else getting ready with their kids. So everybody came up and showed up. And so Portia showed up and she was over there talking to Kenya. He said, "Kenya, Drew tried to make me late." She said, "Huh? What?" And Drew tried to make me late for this event. I told you that me and Drew share the same makeup artist, the same hairdresser. She tried to stay in the chair longer than I did, but I still was able to get over. She said, "Oh, what she did?" And I said, "Yeah, both of these scenarios are being set up. Portia's trying to set up Drew to make everybody think that Drew is doing stuff underhandedly with Dennis. She tried to do underhanded stuff with what you call. You can tell that Portia did not have a storyline after that stuff was signed, so she's trying to make a storyline every which way but loose. If she can't get one with Drew, she's gonna try to make up one with Shamia, and it's just falling flat. But anyway, back to the scene, and so everybody came up, and everybody came to the party. And then Drew came to the party, and I said, "Oh yeah, Drew late." And then so Angela was over there talking to Cynthia, and Angela said, "Cynthia, Shamia, so you think I should need to go over there and talk to Shamia?" She said, "No, not right now. The kids in the room." She said, "Okay." And then so Drew said, "How you doing, everybody? How you doing, everybody?" And then next thing you know, Britt walked in with Meline, and the shady producer kept saying, "Meline, Meline, Meline." They were letting people know that Britt came in, with a +1, which is Meline. Next thing you know, like Kenya run around, "Where's Brooklyn? Where's Brooklyn?" And then Porsha, she over there playing with the Lord. She over there playing with the Lord. Yeah, cause I gotta get up out of here, get up out of here. Cause she saw Brit Eddie, and Brit Eddie came over there. She tried to talk to Angela and what's called, and they kind of talked to her a little bit. And then next thing you know, Drew walked over there and she said, Porsha, I heard you want to talk to me. She said, Porsha, do you want to talk to me? Porsche looked at Drew, rolled her eyes, then she went over there, Brooklyn, Brooklyn, trying to play with little Brooklyn. Ain't this ain't this something? I said, she trying to ignore Drew. And so Drew walked over there and she started talking to Cynthia and Angela. She said, yeah, I tried to work things out with Porsche. And Porsche just ignored me. She said, I'm not going to be begging Porsche and stuff like that. So right after that, Kelly got up saying a little speech about the organization. I forgot what the organization look at organizations kind of some kind of it have to do with autism, some kind of stuff. I'm paraphrasing, I can't read. And she said the proceeds from what you call from the sale was gonna go to the foundation. And then they was all looking at stuff and buying stuff and doing stuff like that. And so and so and so Angela walked over there to Shamir. She said, Shamir, I want to clear things up with you. I want to clear things up with you. And Shamir said, well, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to clear things up with you too. She said, Shamir, will you admit that you were wrong for taking up for your friend Portia like that? And Shamir said, if that's what you came over here to say, since you came over and say that, well then we have nothing to say to each other. Because Anthony, I was thinking that you should have been apologizing to me for the things you said to me and the name that you called me a lapdog. And then so she said, well, we have nothing to talk about. That was Shamir. She said, okay. He said, you don't have to be mean, Shamir. Shamir said, I'm not mean. You the one mean. She said, shut up talking to me. And then Angela said, you shut up talking to me. What you call Shamir. And then Shamir said, you shut up talking to me with your Latoya Jackson nose. She said, you shut up talking to me, Flavor Flav. And they got the busting back and forth. And Keyna said, stop, calm down. The kids are in the room, calm down. Brooklyn's here, Brooklyn's here. And then Kenny interjected and said, y'all don't know how to act y'all don't know how to act at a nice high class elite event. This is not Buckhead. Next thing you know, after they started going back and forth, the episode ended. Episode 3 was good. I'm going to do episode 4 by itself. That's all I have for this video. This is A. Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. I am out.